Hey guys, what's going on? Steven back again, and I'm back with another 40K video from Warhammer. So, the topic for today's video is the summons of shadows is horrifying. I have no idea what that could be. Sounds really cool. You know, I always enjoy the scary, spooky, unsolved, unexplained stuff from the 40K universe, so yeah, this sounds right up my alley, so I'm looking forward to this. Alright, so, yeah, anyways, let's just jump right in and get on to the video. So here we go. The Summons of Shadows.
In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, mankind is besieged on all sides by aliens, heretics, mutants, and far worse, eldritch entities beyond human comprehension and abominations that hunger for the flesh of men. The galaxy is certainly a dangerous place, but the Emperor's faithful, through his divine servants and many military factions, are at least afforded a certain degree of safety and the promise that the Emperor protects. However, there are planets that exist in the far-flung reaches of the Imperium, bereft of the luxury of protection, forgotten sectors and abandoned systems where the Emperor's light has grown dim, backwater worlds whose inhabitants are all too often forced to face the terror of the grimdark future completely alone. The Summons of Shadows was a short story written by David Annandale and included in the Warhammer horror anthology Invocations, released in 2019. This is but one of the spine-chilling entries in this anthology, so if you enjoy these scary stories, I implore you to support the original.
I think I've done quite a few of these. The Skinned Man is horrifying? I don't remember that one. The Pharisee Paradox? The Last Ascension of Dominic Seraph? I don't think I've done many of these. The creation of the Adeptus Mechanicus was insane. Aloth 9 was horrifying. Okay, I might have to check some of these out. Oh, maybe that's why, because some of these are pretty long. Like, that's like an hour long. So maybe that's why I haven't done some of these videos yet. But I'm gonna have to check some of these out because these sound pretty interesting. The Last Ascension of Dominic Seraph.
Release
sounds cool.
And help keep the Warhammer horror line alive. I've included a link down in the description below if you'd like to pick up a copy of this book for yourself. In tonight's tale, we travel to a dying forge world, where scribe Hakob Maltinus will learn that there are more than just servitors and servo skulls lurking within the dark passages of the Administratum Palace complex. Something else is moving silently through the shadows, watching and judging his every move. This is a tale of grief and loss, of madness and monsters, of the consequences of broken promises, and mankind's utter helplessness in the face of an uncaring galaxy. So come with me, my friends. Gather round and listen well as we dive into another terrifying entry in the Grimdark Story Hour. But first, a quick shout out to this video's sponsor. In 2024, we're all trying to live better, healthier lives.
Sounds pretty interesting, you know?
Even though I love being
I said I'm going to have to check out some of those other videos and stuff, because those sound pretty interesting.
And I've definitely been slacking in the health and wellness department. But thankfully, there's today's sponsor, AG1, who I've been using for the last month or so, and I've seen a huge improvement in my focus, energy, and overall well-being. If you're unfamiliar with it, AG1 is a nutritional supplement that combines 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients into an easy-to-drink powder. Not only do they only use the highest quality ingredients they can find, but AG1 is also NSF certified for sport. It aids in digestion by supporting a healthy gut microbiome, as well as supporting things like healthy aging, boosted energy levels, healthier, brighter skin, improved focus, concentration, mental clarity, and so much more. I love that AG1 manages to pack such a high level of quality and nutrient density into an affordably priced product. It's a huge relief knowing that I'm getting comprehensive nutrition that supports my busy lifestyle. I'm also wicked impressed by just how much research and testing goes into it.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I might have to check out some of those other videos, the more horrifying ones and stuff like that. It makes you kind of wonder, though, like, what's the point of, like, I don't know, I guess it's just to have it into the 40K universe, but it's just like, you know,
and 5 AG1 travel packs for free.
None of those
for
things ever get like really
subscription.
brought up again.
Big
It's
thanks
just
to AG1 for sponsoring
something to
this
write
video.
about, you know.
Our story begins within the bowels of the Administratum Palace complex on the dying forge world of Fumus. Here, in one of the labyrinthian facility's many transcription chambers, sat Jacob Maltinus and 12 other scribes. It was the scribe's job to shift through the towering stacks of records, manuscript summaries, correspondence reports, regulation amendments, and every other form of bureaucratic minutia.
Jeez.
No matter how much work they do, no matter how many long nights they spend cataloging pointless records,
They will
their
never
efforts
finish.
never seem to make a dent in the mountainous piles of parchment. The transcription chamber itself was drab and gloomy, illuminated by a series of tall candelabras and a single dull lumen globe that sat in the center of the long table before them. The
Sounds
light
about
they
right.
cast was flickering and just barely strong enough to read by. The air stank of acrid smoke, burning animal tallow, and dusty parchment. Overhead could be seen a series of hovering servo skulls that both monitored the scribes for faltering productivity and endlessly moved bundles of documents to and fro. Records the skulls deemed important based upon
40K
surveys
FedEx.
criteria known only to them would be archived and preserved. Those that failed to impress them were moved to bins marked for incineration. Jacob reached forward and plucked a report from a nearby stack. The record was 50 years old and detailed the notable decline
Skaven.
of vermin populations within the Underhive after AgriWorld shipments had slowed to a crawl and the dregs within had turned to eating rats in order to survive. He grabbed another, this one also multiple decades out of date. It documented the sale of mundane goods between two merchants that Jacob speculated were almost surely dead by now. He knew that they didn't have much time left here. The Imperium was under siege, and the great furnaces of Fumus had long since burned out. Every year that went by, more and more of the planet's important personnel had been ferried off-world and assigned to new posts somewhere else within the Imperium.
So it's slowly
Soon,
moving
it would
people
be
out.
completely abandoned. To add even further insult to the drudgery of Jacob's existence, he knew that no one would ever read any of these reports. The
So he's gonna
Imperium
destroy
didn't
him.
care about this world, its history, or any of those left behind to shift through its carcass.
He's gonna
for
destroy him,
something of
isn't he?
value. But to the Administratum, none of that mattered. All records, no matter how trivial, could not be ignored. All must be cataloged. No matter how much he hated this place and the work that he was forced to do, Jacob was thankful for something to keep him distracted. You see,
Fair
tonight
enough.
wasn't just an ordinary night for him. It was one that marked a dual anniversary of one of the happiest moments in his life, and also the saddest. This was
Okay.
both the 30-year anniversary of the sacred union between he and his wife Velia, but also in a cruel
okay.
twist of fate,
Uh-oh.
the 20-year anniversary of the day she and their twin boys, Balin and Euless, were taken away from him by the Imperial war machine. The twins had been barely 10 years old. They should have been considered too young to fight, but Fumus's population had been steadily dwindling for many decades, so when the tithes came for them, Velia and the children were conscripted into service. Jacob had never
And off they
considered
go.
himself a brave man, but on that day, he would have given anything and faced any horror to go with them. But he was weak, his body plagued by arthritis and cursed with a set of lungs and a heart that never properly developed in the womb.
Oh,
leaving him
jeez.
frequently short of breath and unfit
So
for
he's
combat.
probably plagued by
Despite
frustration
this,
and anger.
All were expected to serve, and Jacob's talents were determined best fulfilled as an administratum scribe, and that he should be patient in his sacrifice. Of course he was proud of them, for what greater honor was there than to fight in protection of the Imperium? But even still,
Fair enough.
it hadn't kept him from mourning their absence. Every day of every year, he found himself momentarily distracted, overwhelmed by that deep and familiar sense of melancholy that he felt whenever he thought of his family. And it was in that moment that he heard something he hadn't heard in many years. A voice, just barely a whisper in his
His
ear,
wife.
that turned his blood to ice. He turned around and squinted against the chamber's gloom. There before him was a shadow,
Okay.
a darkened silhouette of a woman that was eerily motionless despite the flickering candlelight that caused all other shadows to writhe against the walls. Although female in appearance and undeniably humanoid, there was something wrong about it. The shade was strangely angular, with proportions that were off just ever so slightly to instill a deep sense of unease. There was nothing about it that would
Interesting.
cause Akab to recognize this thing as his wife, but he knew in his heart that it was her, just like how that voice in his ear had been unmistakable, even if it had been cold and distant, like the wind over fresh snow. He twisted around so violently in his seat that he knocked over a stack of parchment off of the table, drawing disapproving glares from the other scribes. He quickly looked down to make sure the damage was minimal, but when he looked back up, the shadow was gone. There was nobody there.
What troubles you, Akab?
Asked Archer Tizian, one of his fellow scribes.
It's nothing.
Maltinus said.
An archival reference I forgot to check.
He stood and walked
I thought I
slowly
saw
away from
something.
the table, heading in the direction the shadow seemed to have come from.
It wasn't her. She can't have been here.
He made his way through the chamber, passing towering storage archives, each over 15 feet tall, with
And of course,
rail-mounted
nobody
ladders
else
to get
saw it, or
access to
probably
their
can see it
drawers.
anyways.
Servitors climbed all over them, retrieving and replacing documents. The chamber he was in was so vast that the grinding sound of moving ladders and the slamming of drawers was swallowed by the space and reduced to a sound akin to distant falling pebbles in a dark, fathomless pool. A short distance in, he crossed paths with Avelia Revican, who nodded in greeting. "Marking your day with thanks and contemplation, Maltinus?" she asked. Avelia had been assigned to the Administratum via the Tithe at the same time that Akab had. Just like he, she too had seen her family conscripted into the Imperium's armed forces. Thus the two of them had formed a bond through shared pride and grief.
Makes sense.
At this point, she was the closest thing he had to what someone would consider a friend in this dreadful place.
Well, I am.
I mean, at least you got a friend.
Maltinus asked, distracted, looking past her. "My thoughts are with Velia and your sons, but the Emperor protects, brother."
The Emperor protects.
He answered, smiling weakly, and moved on. The Emperor protects.
Damn
It was
right.
a phrase he had heard many times repeated throughout his life, one that brought comfort to billions in the dark times the Imperium was now going through. The hope that was embedded in that promise kept Akab's spirit alive, even if he had no way of knowing where his family was, or what they were being forced to do, or even what horrifying monstrosity they would have to face. He knew in his soul that the God Emperor
Fair
was
enough.
watching over them, that he would protect them, and one day guide them all back together. He hadn't heard from them in 20 years, but he had to believe in this dream.
20
It was the only
years?
thing continuing to give his existence meaning. Without the Emperor's promise,
That's
he
insane.
might as well have just been another lobotomized servitor.
What am I even doing? There was no one there. I'm just imagining things.
No sooner had he uttered those words than he saw movement out of the corner of his right eye.
Oh, it's
Something
back
that was
again.
at the far end of one of the paths. He kept his head still, but shifted his gaze in its direction. There was another shadow, one much smaller than the last.
Oh,
Though it
it's
had
one of
no
his
eyes or
sons.
face to speak of, you could tell it was watching him. He turned the rest of the way, but as he did, the shade vanished. Once again, there was nobody there. But he knew that wasn't true. He had seen it. There was no doubt in his mind. It had been one of his twin boys. But then, to his horror,
Yep, now he's starting to see
realized
things.
He didn't know which one it had been. With a piercing shame, Balin and Ulis had blurred in his memory into a single being. If he saw them today, he knew he wouldn't be able to tell them apart. If further, he realized if that somehow happened, if they suddenly appeared before him, they would both be men in their early 30s. But there was no mistaking it. That shadow had been cast by a child. He was seeing things. He was hearing things. He'd allowed his grief to cloud
I feel
his
like
mind, and
there's
now
gonna
he
be
was
some
seeing
major
specters and
twist
ghosts,
at the
ones
end of the
conjured from
story.
old, half-forgotten memories that didn't even have the decency to be the proper age. With a sigh, he realized he had been away from his post for too long. He needed to head back, lest one of the servo skulls become agitated by his absence and report him to the overseer. But
Uh-oh.
even
Don't want
so,
that.
after a quick glance around, he knew he wouldn't be able to shake this if he didn't at least make some small attempt at investigating to clear his troubled thoughts. He walked down the aisle and approached where he had seen the child's shadow. One of the drawers near the bottom of the archive unit had been left open. He looked inside and saw a large stack of unsorted documents, a labor that he realized would be waiting for him another day, or perhaps another year. He reached down and picked up the top sheet of vellum. It was an accident report, originating from a place Akab had never heard of called Volgast. The
Okay.
troop transport, the Exaltation of Faith, had had sealants on the ship's
this is where he
plasma
learns, like, his
reactor,
family
documented
died.
as being faulty and fractured. The supervising tech priest had ordered them to be replaced. Yet, according to the accident report, there had been a transcription error, and the sealants had, instead of being registered as in need of replacement, were registered as having already been replaced.
Ooh.
This resulted in the ship leaving port with the flaw unattended.
Oh boy.
She had survived as long as her first warp jump,
And his family was probably on that
when
ship.
she attempted to translate back into real space, there had been a rupture in the plasma engines, causing a white-hot inferno to race through the ship's decks, incinerating all aboard.
Oof.
He scanned his eyes across the document until he reached the bottom and froze. There was the incident report's date, indicating that this tragic accident had occurred only a few weeks shy of 20 years ago. Hakob felt a chill run up his spine and a foreboding sense of dread looming over his shoulders. He flipped through the document until he found a long column of confirmed casualties. There, listed amongst the dead, were the names Velia Maltinus, Balin Maltinus, and Eulis Maltinus. His mouth gaped, his throat closed in grief, and the scream that shook his body emerged only as a strangled hiss. They had died 20 years ago, and their deaths had meant nothing. They had not perished as heroes fighting in the name of the Imperium. They were victims of a stupid mistake, their tragedy bearing no more importance than any of the other documents he spent his night shifting through. It was a single loss amongst many, an incident barely worth noting. The names clouded before him.
Do
He
anything.
felt his eyes welling up with tears. He slumped back against the archive.
That's like falling out of
parchment crumbled in his
a ship or something like that, you know, before you're even being, you know, deployed into the battlefield, you know, you just fall off the ship, you know.
Overseer Terracin stood at the end of the aisle. She was a stern and unflinching woman, foreboding and pitiless as iron.
I was...
Hakob stammered, barely able to think. Return to your post at once.
Yes, Overseer.
Everything in Hakob's world began to blur. He had no conscious memory of returning to his labor, yet he must have, as he found himself once again sorting through documents. It was as if his body was on autopilot, for there was no room in his mind for anything other than anguish, an overwhelming sense of meaninglessness.
All he could think about.
Rage. He felt rage at a galaxy that would reduce every dream to ash. Rage at the lie he had lived for 20 years, and the lie that everyone in his life mindlessly repeated. Those empty, hollow words. The Emperor protects. The Emperor protects.
No. No, he does not.
The refrain tormented him throughout the drudgery of the day. And
Well, the
pursued him
Emperor does
still
protect.
after
I mean,
nightfall, as he
can't
made
protect
the long
against, you
walk
know,
through the dark and
bad
bitter
translations.
cold towards his quarters. The streets here were narrow, squeezed between high, decaying hab towers. The pavement and the facades were grimy from the soot and smoke that choked the air. Filthy gray smog rolled through the alleys, and Hakob could often not see more than a few yards ahead. Snow fell in thick, sodden flakes that left black smears where they landed on his cheeks and slid down like thick tears. He had none
I'm waiting
left
for
of
like the
his own.
twist at the end.
grief was
There's
too
gotta be
big,
some sort of
and
twist,
so was
like
the hate.
he
His
turns to
list
chaos or
of
something like that and
resources
becomes a
continued to
demon
dwindle.
or something
So too did its
from his
population.
hatred
At
and
this
anger
point,
or
the
something.
sector he
I
lived
just
in was
feel
almost
it.
completely deserted. Entire hab blocks now stood abandoned, their windows as broken and dark as the blind sockets of skulls. Even within his own building, no more than a tenth of the units were occupied, and he was the only inhabitant on the 6th floor. Because of this, he was used to being by himself in the streets on his journey home. But on this night, as he walked the path he had done so many times over the years,
He wasn't
realized
alone.
that he wasn't alone. He could hear the sounds of footsteps coming from his left and his right, echoing along beside him. He turned, and though half hidden by the fog, about a block away on both sides, he could see the shadow of one of his twins. They stopped moving when he did. And when he
That'd be
sprang
kinda
to look at
interesting
them,
if they were in, like,
disappeared, their silhouette carried
another
off by
dimension or
soot
something
and
like
snow.
that.
But when he turned away and resumed walking, the footsteps
That's why he's
returned.
walking with
The
them,
twins kept
and they're
pace with
just
him,
in a shadow.
always lurking at the edge of his vision.
They're in like
Always
another
watching
reality
him,
or another dimension.
always judging.
They're not really there. They're just what I want to see.
This conviction did
You
nothing
know,
to
they
ease
are
his
there,
growing fear,
but in a different
nor
dimension.
his
That'd be kind
suffocating
of
grief.
twisted.
It merely highlighted that the featureless shadows were wrought from his fading memories and his inability to distinguish the identity of his own children. Although he couldn't see her, he knew his wife was here too, always behind him, always gone whenever he turned to look. All he could see was what was in front of him, the long shadow she cast that blanketed over him in silent, oppressive judgment.
I'm sorry.
Ah, because he can't
I'm
remember
so
what she looked like.
Sorry, but it's been so long that I'll remember you though. Oh, won't you let me see you?
He said to the ghost of his wife. To see her again, to see all of them one more time, was all that had kept him going for the last 20 years. And now he knew that
he's
would
got
never
nothing.
happen. There was nothing to support his profound loneliness. An endless void of mourning opened before him. He collapsed to his knees, unable to go on.
One more time.
He cried out into the empty night.
I'd give anything to see you. All of you. One last time.
Anything?
It was not the Emperor he prayed to, as the pain of his betrayal and broken promise was far too great. Even still, the perversity of his loved one's death and the strange chance discovery of that
He's going to
report
chaos.
was too strong for him to believe that there was no controlling hand.
He's going to
It
chaos.
had been no coincidence. Something had guided him towards the truth. There was a will here, an omnipotent consciousness at work, a shaper of fate. Though the words escaped his lips as no more than a cracked whisper, the impact they had amidst the still night air felt strong enough to carve deep furrows through the rockcrete of the abandoned habitat.
Kind of giving me chills.
Grant me this boot.
He prayed to that shaper.
Let me see them one more time.
The moment he formulated the prayer, the shadows vanished, and a heavy silence fell over the surrounding area. He was once again completely alone, without even the figments conjured by his grieving mind for company. He sat there, listening to the silence for several minutes, before he realized how foolish he was being. He was about to get up and continue on to his hablock when he heard something off in the distance. A heavy, dragging tread that broke the silence. He slowly turned around and stared into the swirling dark of the night as the noise drew closer and closer. Whatever it was big and clumsy. In one moment, it sounded like it stood on 2 feet and was limping, dragging an injured leg across the rockcrete, whereas at other times, it sounded fast and disorganized, a rapid pattern echoing off the walls between the
Interesting.
steps. The thing in the darkness screamed. It bellowed in both pain and anger, and sounded like a woman, or some horrible abomination attempting to mimic a woman. He didn't stick around to find out. He leapt to his feet and ran. He knew that whatever this thing was, he must not see it. He ran faster than he had ever done before, even in his youth. His heart hammered out a painful, irregular beat, and his faulty lungs rasped wetly with the effort of drawing breath. He was running on pure adrenaline. But despite how fast he was moving,
That's the power of
he
adrenaline.
could hear the heavy, lumbering footfalls and disjointed, inhuman screaming drawing closer and closer. He reached the rusty, flaking entrance of his hablock, threw open the door to the stairwell, and blindly staggered up the 6 flights of stairs. Even before he reached the top, he could hear the thing below him beginning to climb. It bumped and slipped, slithered and prowled, each amalgamous movement echoing up after a cob. The scream came again, but this time it was changing. It was more of a wail, a choking, gargling growl of both anguish and hatred, like a half-formed throat trying desperately to form human words and failing utterly. He threw open the door to his floor and stumbled down the dark hall towards his apartment, his hands pressed firmly against his ears, desperate to block out the thing's horrible cries. The lumen strips overhead barely functioned. They flickered and pulsed a sickly gray light.
Gotta have flickering lights for a horror story.
Darkness. He reached his door and with trembling hands fumbled with his keys as he heard the door to the
Gotta have that
stairwell
trope
at the end of
too.
the hall begin to
Oh
creak
god,
open.
I dropped my keys.
He was sobbing now as he finally managed to slam the correct key into the plasteel door and unlock it. He threw himself inside, shut the door behind him, and locked it again. Gasping for breath, Hakab slowly backed away from the entryway and listened intently for the sounds of movement on the other side. The thing was in the hallway now, shambling ever closer towards him. He heard a hand, or what he assumed to be a hand, scraping on the other side of the door before it began to fumble with the handle. He froze, like prey in the presence of a hungry predator. There was a long moment of silence, and just as he dared to let himself hope that the thing had moved on, there was a massive, booming crash as the door flew open, knocked completely off its hinges as if struck with inhuman strength. He stared through the entryway into the gaping void of darkness beyond, and out of the abyss stepped the horror, and for the first time, he got a good look at his pursuer. His wish had been granted. The changer of ways who watched over those abandoned by the Emperor had answered his prayers. There before him was his family. It was the one last look at them he had asked for. His wife and
Did say
children
anything.
had returned to him, but they had come back wrong, fused into a single being. Velia staggered forward, her steps heavy.
That's some
with the
Evil
weight
Dead
of her
level
sons
shit right there.
loaded with her torso. Their legs scrabbled for purchase on the floor, sometimes finding it, sometimes not. 3
Your
pairs
wish
of
is
arms
granted.
stretched out, hands clawing to reach a cob. The heads of the boys melted into Velia's lower jaw, and their mouths had become one terrible, distorted maw. The flesh of the monster was burned black. Crisp pieces of it broke off at a cob's feet. The maw opened wide, and at last the scream became words. You did this! Hakab's family screamed, 6 eyes fixed upon him, hating him and his wish that had brought them back to this agony. And then they were upon him, dragging him into the mass. His screams were muffled quickly in the nightmare of reunion.
Oh, it absorbed him. So he became one of them. Ooh. Ooh. That was good. That definitely got some hairs sticking up on my arm. Hoo-wee. Damn. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to watch way more of these, because these were good. That was awesome, you know? Cursing the Emperor, and then being like, I would do anything to see them again. Okay, you know, you said anything. You did see him in a form. Not the form you wanted, but still a form. Ugh. Ooh, man. Damn. Yeah. So is that just a book of short stories, or was that the book itself that he was talking about? Or was it?
Release and help keep.
Black-Eyed Saint, Warhammer Horror. Okay. Interesting. I'm gonna like maybe check some of these out. See how much they are. Maybe get some audiobooks or something like that, because that's pretty good. Was that the what do you say? Was this story based off of that one book? What was it? And where's the thing he showed? I can't remember what it was. Like Invictus or something like that? Is that just what this story is based off of, just that book? Or is that book a book of multiple short stories? Yeah, I can't remember. I know it was somewhere in the beginning here, but I don't remember. It was a quick flash of it. But yeah, definitely gonna have to check out more of these, because it's a really good story. You know, I thought this was gonna be, I don't know, like, oh, there's this, like, I don't know, because sometimes in like somebody, oh, there it is. Yeah, this one here, a collection of Warhammer stories. Oh, okay, so this is just a okay, so a book of multiple short stories. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not sure what I was expecting really out of this. I know in some of the videos, you know, they talk about, oh, there's like these creatures and stuff like that, and like the far reaches of the galaxy, and it's just, you know, doesn't really go anywhere and stuff like that. Like, all right, well, there's like these creatures and stuff on this planet. What of it? You know, like, are they going to come back? Is there going to be like any more to it? Which, I mean, I understand probably not, just because there is so much lore, and it's like, how do you keep track of everything? You know, like even now in the lore, like, what's really like going on? You know, like, yeah, we got like Vashtor, the lion, Angron. The lion and Angron fought. The lion won, of course. Then what? What's going on? What's happening? Where's Vashtor? What is he doing? Where's the lion? What's he doing? Is he heading back to Terra? Is he still off doing other things? And now, just as of a couple days ago, we got Fulgrim, which I'm kind of excited about that one. But okay, now we got another Demon Primarch when we haven't even really done much with the lion yet. Like, what are all these other characters doing? And now we're bringing another character in when we don't even have anything for those previous characters. So, like, it's gotta be, extremely difficult to try to, keep up all the lore on so many different characters and so many different events and stuff like that. So I guess I understand, like, some of these short stories and stuff like that of, like, oh, we get all these creatures that are eating the population of, this imperial planet. It's like, yeah, all right, whatever, we got bigger things, to really deal with instead of one little planet and a couple little creatures. All right, just send, someone to go check things out, whatever. I get that. But yeah, just, trying to keep track of all the lore and stuff like that. It will be interesting to, see where we go and, what they're going to do with the lore, because I know everyone's still waiting for, like, the Lion and Gilliman to have a reunion. And who knows, probably by, I don't know when, we'll have another loyal Primarch return. And it's like, but we haven't even done anything much with the Lion yet. Like, and already we're bringing back more and more Primarchs. It's like, let's kind of, let's do stuff with the ones we got now, It's like, all right, hey, look, they're back, here's a cool story, this is what they're doing, and then, okay, that's it. Like, what next? Is he, I don't know. I can only imagine just how difficult it would be, I'd hate to be, it would be kind of fun, but it'd be very difficult to, be someone who's in charge of, like the dungeon master, if you will, of 40K that controls, like, the lore of everything. That would just be insane. But anyways, that is enough rambling from me. That was a really good short story and stuff like that. That was awesome. Just seeing this creature and then finding out, his wife and sons died 20 years ago in a stupid ship accident from a bad translation. Like, what the fuck? They didn't even do anything, they didn't die in battle or anything like that. They got blown up in a ship because of a bad translation saying that something got fixed that didn't get fixed. That's gonna, oh man. But yeah, we have to check out some of these other ones. The Eisenbrack Horror, I don't know, kind of looks like a Tyranid creature, so that kind of looks pretty interesting. So yeah, definitely have to check out more of these. So anyways, on that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button, that'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media, links in the description box below. And of course, leave me all your thoughts and comments. What did you guys think about the story and stuff like that? Was that pretty spooky? Let me know what you guys think about just the lore in general. What do you think about Fulgrim returning and stuff like that? Are you happy they brought back another Primarch, or do you think, okay, let's slow it down and work with the ones that we currently have in the setting now? Or are you happy, Fulgrim's back? I like Fulgrim. I thought his model's, pretty cool. I kind of like the Emperor's Children. If I was to ever, ever play again, and play Chaos, I'd maybe go Emperor's Children. I don't know, like, Lucius is like another, I'm kind of curious to see what his model is going to be, and if they're going to do anything with, like, his, his lore, because I hear he's, like, a pretty terribly written character, which kind of, sucks. Like, oh, he's supposed to be, like, this good duelist, but he sucks, apparently. And then, like, every time it gets killed, if whoever killed him take pleasure in that or whatever, then they become Lucius. Even, like, I don't know, I think I've even heard in other videos, like, oh, if Lucius steps on a landmine, the guy who assembled said landmine now becomes Lucius. It's like, well, how the fuck am I supposed to know that my landmine that somebody else placed killed Lucius? Shouldn't the guy who placed my landmine there be the one that becomes Lucius? I didn't place it there. Yes, I assembled it, but I'm not the one that placed it right where Lucius was going to walk, so shouldn't he become... You know, it's just like... What? You know? I mean, his model does look really cool, you know, but... Yeah, I don't know. Just some of, like... The lore for him is just pretty terribly written, you know, as compared to, like, I don't know, Karn, Typhus, and stuff like that. You know, at least I got, you know, decent lore and stuff, but I don't know. But anyways, other than that, yeah, just stick around. More videos are on the way, and I will see you guys next time.